President Bola Tinubu has declared a state of emergency on food security in response to the high cost of foodstuff. He's rolled out other measures to make food items affordable. The federal government says it will activate land banks nationwide, which currently stand at 500,000 hectares, mapped to increase the availability of arable land for farming, which will immediately impact food output. Now, a good time, it seems, for the agricultural sector, as farmers will stand to benefit hugely, and it will lead to ripple effects of putting food on the tables of Nigerians, creating employment opportunities for Nigerians and boosting the economy. But in all of this, are the farmers happy? Will they be able to ride this train to prosperity? I'll be joined in the studio by the National President of the All Farmers Association of Nigeria, architect Kabiru Ibrahim. I'll also speak with Jake Ekpele. You know him. He's the founder and chief executive of TAF Africa, on the importance of ensuring disability inclusion in national food and water security measures. Plus, our in-house analyst will be giving his perspectives on the news of the day. I'm Sulaiman Aled, and this is Arise Prime Time. Very important conversation, food. Yes, we all need it. President Bola Tinubu has declared state of emergency on food security in response to the high cost of foodstuff. Special advisor to the president, Dele Alake, announced interventions to reverse inflation and ensure future supplies of affordable foods.
It is no longer news that Nigerians are grappling with high cost of food items. While availability is not an issue, it has become increasingly difficult for many to afford the hiking prices. The president's decision to remove subsidy on fuel has further aggravated an already precarious situation. To reverse the trend, President Bola Tinubu has declared a state of emergency on food security and announced a series of initiatives aimed at ensuring uninterrupted supplies of affordable foods for ordinary Nigerians. Among the key interventions are the immediate release of fertilizers and grains to farmers and households to mitigate the effects of subsidy removal, while the central bank will continue to play a pivotal role in funding the agricultural value chain.
Accordingly, and in line with this administration's position on ensuring that the most vulnerable are supported, the president has declared with immediate effect the following actions. 1, a state of emergency on food security. 2, that all matters pertaining to food and water availability and affordability as essential livelihood items be included within the purview of the National Security Council. As with most emergencies, there are immediate, medium, and long-term interventions and solutions. In the immediate term, this government intends to deploy some savings from the fuel subsidy removal into the agricultural sector, focusing on revamping the agri sector.
The message is that middlemen who have kept all these grains, because we'll be releasing everything we have in stock. So the message is that middlemen and those who are storing these things to create arbitrage and get profits, this is the best time to release it quickly, because once we release those paddy and the maize that the central bank has, your prices will be depressed.
In addition, the government plans to establish a national commodity board that will monitor and regulate food prices, ensuring fair pricing for consumers.
Through this board, government will moderate spikes and dips in food prices. As for storage, existing warehouses and tanks will be revamped to cut waste and ensure efficient preservation of food items. This government says it's going to do away with the old ways of livestock business. So livestock business is holistic, whether herders, grazers, whatever.
Efforts to facilitate trade and increase revenue from food and agricultural exports are also highlighted. The government aims to streamline customs processes and reduce transportation costs, benefiting both producers and consumers. With these interventions, the government hopes to not only address the immediate crisis, but also create employment opportunities in the agricultural sector. However, Nigerians eagerly await to see the implementation of these initiatives, hopeful they will bring more affordable food items for them. From the presidential villa, Adesua Omoruan, Arise News.
For more on this, I'm joined in the studio by the national president of the All Farmers Association of Nigeria, architect Kabiru Ibrahim. Good to see you and thanks for your time. Food is so important, a commodity for the livelihood of a country, of any community. Now speak to us first, what were your initial intentions or thoughts when you heard that the president has declared an emergency on food security?
Well, first, I can tell you that all farmers in Nigeria and every Nigerian is very happy with this development. And we are hopeful that we will attain food sufficiency and the ultimate food security. For food security issues to be national security issues, I think is doing the right thing. Hitherto, we had made a lot of efforts in trying to make sure that in no distant future we attain food security. But most of these things happening, especially in the last administration, the policies were there, but implementation had been very difficult or non-existent in many cases. I believe now, with the problems that we have in the nation in terms of food, but mind you, there is now a law that everybody has a right to food. I believe you have heard of the act that was assented to by the president just before he left, that every human being in Nigeria has a right to food. And the SDGs 1 and 2 also talk about exit from poverty and hunger. So it's timely that this has come. We hope that it will be implemented. And all of the things that Mr. President outlined, we hope that they will be given directly to the affected people. Sometimes when you allow or get a critical mass to do the distribution of some of these things, problems happen. Whenever this happens, we must also look at the competence of the people, that the people work very hard and they have integrity. Then you can hand over these initiatives to them to implement. Otherwise, you know, we have had ministers of agriculture, ministers of water resources, ministers of, but the implementation of most of the programs have not been successful. To the extent that now in this country, farmers are blamed for the skyrocketing prices of food. But the farmers also buy everything that the way you do in the market. I mean, no farmer in Nigeria produces everything else that he needs. He will produce some, sell them, and buy others that he needs. So he also goes and experiences the same thing as everybody is experiencing. So we are very glad that the president has made this a national security issue. And there are many, many threats to food security that will be addressed. I believe the president said the insecurity will be stemmed. There will be expansion of cultivable and irrigable land, even though it's work in progress. 500,000 is a very large parcel of land. I hope that we'll be able to expand the cultivable and...
No, let's not expand the conversation, because I listened to you keenly, and you said the issue has to do with implementation. But again, when you also stretched it, you arrived at security, which is very important. We've seen in the last 4 years how farmers have been slaughtered in the northeast, how farmers have been killed by bandits in the south, in the northwest. So how does this come in the mix where we are at the moment? We're talking about food security, but we have to talk about the first cause, the security of the one who produces the food to secure the nation.
Yes, and in fact, if you look at the statement, it is saying that there will be a different approach to the issue of food security. It will be a national security issue. Therefore, this insecurity you are talking about happening in the northwest, northeast, will have to be addressed frontally. We don't make noise about it. We should do it. I mean, we can't say these are our strategies in the open.
Because we recall at a point in time, some of your members, about 80 of them were slaughtered in cold blood around the northeast axis. So that's the whole conversation. People are asking the first things be put in place, security of the farmers.
Well, I mean, why I said we are happy is because they said there would be a more serious approach to the issue of food security. Now, insecurity on the farms is a very strong threat factor to productivity. So if there will be productivity, which everybody requires now, we must stem insecurity. So I don't want to look at it as business as usual. If, for instance, we deployed X number of personnel to make sure that they restore security in a place, now we expect quadruple that number to do it, quadruple the equipment to do it. And therefore, you make sure that security is in place before the production of food, which will lead to food sufficiency, a drop in the prices that we see today, and then the ultimate food security. So it's a war that involves everybody. This insecurity issue or security issue is really everybody's problem. I should be able to report that my son is perpetrating this crime. I mean, I'm not doing it for me or for him. I'm doing it for generations to come. I should be able to come clean on that. That is my contribution. If I don't have arms, if I don't have any powers, I should be able to at least report that. So everybody should come in and work together to make sure that the farmers are able to produce on their farms and to scale their productivity by getting some of these things that the president outlined: inputs, fertilizers, good seeds, transportation, energy. All these things have to be in place for you to have food security. Food security simply means you eat what you desire at the time that you desire it, and you can afford it, and it is nutritiously balanced. That is food security. It's not eating a bar to go to bed so that you're not hungry. No, you eat what will give you full nourishment, to have good brain power, to be able to think outside the box. That is food security. The countries that have that food security are advanced in technology.
Now, let's speak about advancement in technology as it relates to agriculture. You just said something about seed, and we spoke about seeds earlier on before we came on air. How much of an improved seed and species we have in Nigeria at the moment? Are the farmers still relying on, because I see a smile on your face, because now for you to show up productivity, you need to be in tune with modern day seedlings and the likes.
See, in agronomy, there is a fundamental difference between grains and seeds. Farmers are enjoined to plant seeds, not to recycle grains. There is a fundamental difference. What you harvest on your farm after planting seeds is your grains. But if you plant foundation seeds, or early generation seeds, you get seeds to plant. But if you just go and buy seeds and plant them, and then you harvest and replant what you have got, you are planting what they call grains. But buy seeds, they may be a bit costly. There are many improvements now happening. There is what is called genome editing.
Yeah.
You take a seed type, it may have handicaps in yield and in even grain size, and in looks, its aesthetics and all that. You look at that seed, work on that seed, take some of its genes that cause a backward or some effect in its looks, the yields that you get, and then work on it. Work on the genes. You now edit it, and you get something better. Simply, this is not is quite different from genetic engineering, putting in something to make the seed work. That is work in progress. It's happening. Even GMO,
in Nigeria.
In fact, today I was in an older NEPAD program on genome editing. We started on Monday. We finished today. Validation of work we started in Lagos. Some people went to even Kenya. The people who came to do it are from South Africa. So it's catching, it's being done all over Africa. And I'm sure you will see the results. The results are simply put, if a farmer is used to getting maybe two tons of a certain commodity per hectare, when you edit the genome of that seed, you are likely to get many times the two tons. If you get like 5 tons, for instance, when somebody visits you, you will be able to entertain them better. You will be able to pay school fees better. You will be able to dress better. Your family will look healthier. They can, the sky is their limit. So when you upscale productivity, you bring prosperity. The farmer who had always been looked upon as resource poor will now become very rich. And we will be going to the farms on our helicopters, just like they do elsewhere.
And for us to get to that, as we wind down, what are the key things you expect the government to help erase some of the challenges that farmers are going through in Nigeria?
Among the things that the president outlined, I have not seen mechanization. Mechanization, simply put, means replacing human power with machine power. That is covering more mileage or more hectareage than you were hitherto doing using your manual labor. So if we optimize the production and encourage the science incubation centers here, or technology incubation centers, to at least manufacture the small tools and replacements on the large tractors and combined harvesters and all that, we will be able to get out of this. Look at Brazil, for instance. We have been trying to borrow money from Brazil to bring in tractors and agricultural machinery. About 20, 30 years ago, Brazil was looked upon as a third world country. Today, can you do that? But they did it from within. We cannot rely on just bringing in these things, using them as they are. Even replacements have to be ordered and expect to grow from there. And then that mechanization and processing of what we produce is what will take us out of poverty. In fact, these jobs that we are talking about, creation of jobs, will come from processing and activities led by technology. So we should be able to emphasize that. We are trying to scale productivity, but meanwhile, other areas that can bring employment have not really been looked at. We must also think of processing. We must think of transportation, and because I had them, there is a mention of transportation. You must be able to bring what you produce from the points of production to the point of need, easily and cheaply. You must have arrangements to have special subsidies on transportation. Because what happens is, if you produce something in, let's say in my village, and you want to take it to Lagos, and you pay through your nose for transportation, you will have to add your transport costs to the price of that commodity. That is why you cannot use Lagos as the barometer of the price of food. You can't even use Abuja.
You know what really comes to mind is how much of assistance do the farmers get from our research institutes. So I recall the Nigeria Institute for Oil Palm Research, NIFOR. In the 60s, Nigeria was the largest, biggest producer of oil palm. And even Indonesia came to Nigeria to understand Nigeria. But in 2022, just last year, Indonesia banned Nigeria, banned oil palm coming from Nigeria. So our research institutes, how viable are they in helping our sector,
I'm
agricultural
happy
sector?
to tell you that we now have a law. They call it the PVP law, Plant Variety Protection Law. It's an act which makes the researcher a beneficiary of his or her research findings. Hitherto, there was no protection. You do the research, it's kept on the shelf because you don't have the impetus to even spread it because you get nothing. Now you have a copyright on your research findings. You can be paid for it. Therefore, it's available to us, to everybody who wants to buy. I mean, if we go to IAR, for instance, there are many things that have been produced and they are given to the farmers. They even sell seeds to the farmers that they have worked on, and the results of the research findings are there attached to them. So I believe it's work in progress, but it's catching on. You know, people are now respecting research findings. And research findings are finding their way into the hands of farmers, and the farmers are using them. So to answer your question, what is happening today is very different from what has been happening before. In 2021, or was it 2021, the PVP bill was assented to by the president.
And how easy is it for people to cross into the sector? For instance, you're an architect. We've seen a lot of people, medical doctors, go into agriculture, journalists, broadcasters, you know, people from other sectors now taking. But how difficult, or what are the key challenges these people go through? Some say land, and how much of a problem is land?
Well, you see, whatever endeavor you are going to do, especially when you are even going away from what you learned in school, you don't do it because Suleiman has a farm and Kabiru now wants to have a farm and do the same thing. You have to know what it entails. You have to have a business plan. You think very well of it, especially, you know, the category of people you mentioned. You don't just jump into it because you think Suleiman is making money from poultry. You want to do poultry. Understand the details of what poultry entails before you get into it. I understand that since 2015, when the agriculture promotion policy was launched, there is a surge of people taking into agriculture. In fact, agriculture became on the front burner in Nigeria thanks to the APP, the agriculture promotion policy. You can see the intervention from the CBN, what they call the Anko Borrower program. Look at the colossal sum of money put in there. Look at, everybody now is talking about CBN and agriculture. In fact, CBN is more in your discussions than the Federal Ministry of Agriculture because there is a lot of interest in it. All we need to do is to implement whatever plans we have properly.
So it was a successful program?
Yeah, it has a degree of success, but its implementation has been affected by either lack of knowledge or the Nigerian psyche of corruption. Otherwise, right away, we can say that we have some achievements in, for instance, rice. Local rice may be costlier than we anticipated, but you have to look at the purchasing power of our currency. I mean, as a farmer, up to 2019, we were buying the fertilizer from the presidential fertilizer initiative at 5,500 and 5,000. But then the exchange rate for the naira, for the dollar was about 200 naira. Now, the exchange rate is about 790. So if they tell you that they are selling fertilizer at 20,000, you shout. But look at
So it's more or less still subsidized in a way.
Of course, you know, but the thing is that as like Oliver Twist, we ask for more. But the subsidy should not just be given through third parties. If there is a subsidy on anything, it should go to the person that really needs it directly. Once you pass it through intermediaries, something happens. In Nigeria, we have seen where governors buy fertilizers and we see the fertilizers being sold in the market. Either they give the wrong people who don't use it. I had the privilege of chairing distribution of fertilizers in some states, for instance. There was one state that distributed about 23,000 metric tons of fertilizer to farmers. And we know one area where you cannot do farming activities because the conditions do not warrant it. If people in that place take fertilizer, they sell it. So what you do is don't give them fertilizer, give them something else. Give fertilizer to those people who need it. And these palliatives that we are talking about, 500 billion or so, going to resource poor people. Identify the resource poor people and give it to them. Do not make other people in distributing this eat fat on it.
It's still a problem of data, and I'd like to thank you for your time, Kabiru Ibrahim, President, All Farmers Association of Nigeria, and I'm hoping that this conversation will continue in the days to come.
Thank you.